Hi folks, a very warm welcome back to The Library is Open. So I hope you brought your library cards, my darlings. Tog pop. Bit of a random one today and a bit ad hoc-y. Normally I plan my videos at least a little bit format wise, but today I was reading an article and I just thought, you know what, this would be a really interesting discussion for the channel, just to hear your thoughts really. So my mother bequeathed me an article from the Sunday Times. Now, don't lynch us, neither of us buy the Sunday Times. It was put in her bag by accident at work, and she just said, do you want it, to have a little gander at? And I said, yeah, go ahead then. And basically the kind of gist of the article is about AI, artificial intelligence, and a kind of discussion around a new book that's being published called Story Machines, by Routledge, and it comes out this very week. If I post this on Monday, it'll come out on the Tuesday, 5th of July, in the UK. And basically the gist is about the kind of technology of AI that allows machines to generate story and to reproduce the kind of stylistic qualities of particular authors and so on and so forth. So there's been some testing with Jane Austen, Sally Rooney's mentioned in the article, Jeremy Clarkson, lol, but also Shakespeare. You know, with the kind of discussion lending towards eventually could sort of artificially generated story either be an aid to authors, or, you know, not to sound too Twilight Zone-y, eventually kind of replace authors. And I just thought this was really interesting, because actually looking at the samples, what they've done is they've sort of got like a paragraph of Jane Austen, and then they fed I'm not going to pretend I understand all the science, all the computer science around this. They've kind of fed the machine with examples, I believe, as I understand it, of the writer's style, so on and so forth. And then when it's accumulated enough, much like, I suppose, humans learn in some ways, it can then reproduce the style. Okay, so they've got like a paragraph from Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen, and then a paragraph that the computer generated. And then, they've also done that with Beautiful World, Where Are You? By Sally Rooney. And then, you have to sort of guess, and they're very similar, basically. It's convincing, is my point. There's also another example using a sonnet, which, technically should have worked, but because it has quite strict linguistic and grammatical rules to make it a sonnet, but although it doesn't appear to have managed to reproduce that fully, which, one of the people in the article is quoted as saying it's an efficient wordsmith, good at writing the next sentence, but has no ability to reflect on what it's written as a whole, and to sort of reflect on whether this is coherent and stuff. And yeah, as I say, I don't want to go too much into the science of how that happens, because, on the surface, that is remarkable. It is incredibly clever. And, in the piece, they sort of go on to talk about, sentience of artificial intelligence and so on and so forth, if that was ever a thing. Which feels like a conversation that should happen in sci-fi only, but here we are, it's 2022 and the world's on fire. But I suppose my thought on this was, or rather my stance is, in the same way that I feel about flat earth belief. And not to sound too glib, but, I kind of think, so what? Does that make any sense? I don't want to sound like I'm just dismissing, like, obviously the immense work that's gone into this, but, like, why would I want that? If we ever got to a stage where computers could generate fiction, non-fiction, whatever, poetry and so on and so forth, why would I want that? As someone who at heart, so I do have a vested interest, someone who at heart is essentially a storyteller in one form or another, career-wise, life-wise. For me, story, performance, writing, reading is an act of communion between people with shared experiences or specific experiences that are based on their lived experience. You know, it's a kind of communion of the soul in a way. To use theatre as an example, which I don't think is a huge jump from fiction or writing, whatever, generally, well, they're all writing, is to say that, you know, the best kind of art generally is about saying, you know, this is what this feels like for me. Is that what it feels like for you? You know, which is why when you're in a live theatre event, for instance, that communion metaphor kind of works even better, because we are literally in communion. So the audience or the listener to the story, for instance, we did, the Vegan Queens did Drag Queen Storytime this weekend, for instance. And, you know, at least 50% of the experience is what happens when the audience kind of meet the artist, and that can also work in a, you know, written context as well, from page to audience, as it were. So yeah, just to kind of return to that sort of thinking, as it were. Sorry, I'm doing this all off the top of my head. Why would I want communion with something that has been generated by machine that does not have that experience? Because it's inauthentic, isn't it? In terms of, say for instance, if I read Sally Rooney, I'm reading Sally Rooney, who may not be writing about her own personal experience, but she can't help but put the way she sees the world into that writing. So in reading her, I'm allowed a glimpse into who that person is. And human connection is, you know, we thrive on it, we need it, you know, in the same way that touch is an essential human need. And if I'm reading a novel, there's something just quite icky to my head. Maybe I'm being old-fashioned, I don't know, about thinking that this wasn't created by human hand, you know, because how can I buy into the authenticity of the experience when I know that at baseline it's a lie, you know? And a lot of fiction is a lie, you know. Sometimes we joke that what I do in teaching and indeed doing acting is essentially a lie, and it is a lie, but it's a lie that contains the truth, you know. Whereas I'm not quite sure what this gives to literature. And again, I don't mean to demean the people who came up with this. I don't mean to sort of, you know, say that this has been a futile exercise, because of course it's incredible. And, you know, but again, I just don't know ultimately, other than oh, that's cool, what the point is. Would I read an entirely artificially generated novel? No. I don't want that, you know. I want people's blood, sweat and tears. That sounds awful, doesn't it? I want people's blood, sweat and tears, but I want to feel that I'm having some kind of a connection to people through that medium. So yeah, the kind of last paragraph got me. It says, when you dry up as a writer, being able to press the continue button and allowing the AI, I'm paraphrasing here, to generate the next paragraph or two, which you then revise, I think that will become a part of the repertoire, part of the toolkit. I really hope it doesn't, to be honest. Because writing and reading are labours of love. And there is something, I don't mean to romanticize the struggle of the artist or anything like that, but the struggle is where the brain work and the heart work and the soul work happens for me, and to kind of remove that, including the writer's block and the sleepless nights and stuff, you know, they can be awful, I know that, but ultimately that's what makes the whole thing rewarding. It's what makes it an act, I think, of humanity. So anyway, yes, The Story Machines is published by Routledge, out on July the 5th. I may read it just because, you know, I've sprouted all these opinions, and really I should follow that up, because otherwise I'm just, you know, it's not an informed opinion, is it? But as a general kind of vibe, I'd be really interested to hear what you think about this. Would you read a computer-generated novel? Do you think artificial intelligence can ever reproduce that? You know, and I'm totally up for debate as well like that. It's not a value judgment. If you think it's really cool and awesome, amazing. I wonder what happens to authorship, though, under those kind of circumstances. That would be a really interesting discussion, wasn't it? Do you have to be a co-writer? Will it say, for instance, I don't know, by such a thing titled by, you know, off the top of my head, who's an author that's not dead? I was gonna say, just let's imagine that Agatha Christie's still alive, for instance. The mystery of, you know, The Old Book by Agatha Christie and, you know, X59231.6, you know, or is that Elon Musk's kid? I don't know. Anything's possible these days. But yeah, sound off in the comments. I'd be really interested to see what you fellow book sniffer worms think about this as a phenomena, or just as an idea. All right, my loves, told you it was going to be ad hoc, and told you it was going to be quick, and it's been 11 minutes, so there you go. Never say I don't give you content to make up for my absences. All right, but put your library cards somewhere safe for the time being. Look after yourselves, and normal service will be resumed in the next video. All right, much love. Mwah.